Coming off the moon, the soil in the earth, breaking through the rocks, growing wild and tall till the buds begin to pop. So pack me in a bowl or roll me in a spliff, while you're breaking me down.
Hey, this is Ryan Heron from Portland, Oregon, and today I am with
Amanda Breeze, and I'm back in Toronto.
And we're here to talk about all the fun stuff around one of our favorite plants, cannabis. In today's episode, we're just going to sum up Amanda's trip to Europe, and she's going to tell us what it was like kicking it around there and what the cannabis scene is and was. It's been painfully long since I've been to Europe and living the backpacking life, so I'm pretty stoked you got to go and visit it for us and tell us what is good.
Yes, I was really hoping to catch more Wi-Fi while I was there so we wouldn't have to put such a dramatic pause on all of our recordings, especially because as we left off, we launched the aroma wheel and we were nominated for an award. There was just so much going on, and then it was full pause, pure drama, and I jumped over the sea and I went to Europe for 3 weeks. So it was a hell of a trip. It's been a hot minute since I've been back there. And I definitely had to get used to living out of a backpack again, which was fun.
Yes.
So it's been good. And yeah, I got to bop around to a few different countries with Vince, and some of my bandmates were there also. We had like a nice crew of like 10 people, and we were kind of separating and then coming back together and separating. So the trip actually started in Dublin for about 5 hours until I flew straight to Sicily. And Sicily was really interesting. Okay, I'll run through a quick overview here because then we hopped on a plane. We actually ended up in Slovenia. I spent 1 day in Venice and then went to Slovenia. And then we were and Slovenia is so random. Wasn't expecting that, but actually really liked it there. And then we popped down to Croatia for about a week, a couple different cities there. And then up to Oslo, because that was our 24-hour layover before we flew back home. And Vince went back to Buffalo, and I went back to Toronto, and I just got back a couple days ago. So I'm jet lagged as fuck. And back to smoking my homegrown, which is nice too.
Yeah, seriously, miss some of those flavors, I'm sure.
It was definitely a mixed bag. The one thing I will say that I thought was so strange, so Italy is decriminalized, and Slovenia is decriminalized, and Croatia is decriminalized. So of course, anywhere you go in the world, people are smoking weed. When it was decriminalized or when it wasn't, you always find weed in every country, everywhere you go. But strangely, there's all of these little storefronts, which I'm saying in quotations because they're not real stores. It's just like a literal front. And most of them have these weed vending machines. So in all three of these countries, were these vending machines, and they had crazy names from like Cannatina, play on a cantina, to like Amsterdam, whatever. And they had all these weird names. And they had tons of products available. Supposedly, all of these products are CBD. You can see them through the vending machine. So that was a little bit shocking for me. Yeah, because like here, you can't see anything and it's legal. So it was kind of weird to be able to actually see the flower through these vending machines. And then they had tons of ancillary products. Like I ended up buying some CBD gum before a flight.
Sure.
Which, to be fair, I don't actually think like would really do anything. But I was on a budget, and it was the cheapest thing in the vending machine. So.
Right. Well, and I also like the fact that you're like, look, I'm getting on a flight. Even if this is a placebo, a little CBD gum, I'm going to be chill. It's going to be a fun flight.
Yeah, so that was kind of funny. They had chocolate bars and stuff. So so there was definitely weed everywhere. It just wasn't all good. And it was kind of misleading because, they had your classic names like AK-47, Jack Hare, like Lemon Cake and stuff, like just like your classic top most common weed names. Obviously, that's not what they were, and obviously they were CBD. I know my friends got some pre rolls from one of the vending machines in. We're in a city called Palermo in Sicily, and Palermo was very, very conservative. Not to mention it was kind of Easter time, so I feel like the Catholics were really out in full fucking force. Super judgy, super judgy.
Yeah. Palermo's the only city I have been rejected from a restaurant where they just said, no, we will not serve you.
Were you wearing shorts or something? Was there something?
No, we were just like dirty American travelers, and we didn't quite have the vibe, and we stood in the entrance for like 25 minutes before finally somebody came up and they were like, you need to leave. We're not going to serve you here. It's like,
Dude,
okay.
I swear they were like watering down our coffees at the local coffee shop so we wouldn't go there. Like the vibe was so fucking weird. We started calling it Shitily because everyone was having such a bad time in Italy. Which I'm half Italian, so I thought I was gonna really connect with my people. But no, yeah. I hope my mom doesn't listen to this because like I told her we were calling it Shitily and she actually got quite mad about it.
Oh, well, how dare you?
It's not my fault. They were very judgy. So yeah, I was like definitely nervous in some places to be smoking, because of how conservative these places were. Like Slovenia isn't really known for being not conservative, nor is Croatia. So I definitely will admit I was very nervous, to try weed. But I will say, while we were in Palermo, we were about to hop on the train to go back to where this little beach town we were staying in. And I was with three friends, and Vince knew that I was trying to find weed. So he was like, this guy walked by and asked to roll a cigarette. We gave him our smokes, and Vince was like, hey, do you have any weed? And he's like, oh, yeah, you want some weed? Come with me. He really didn't speak a lot of English. So I was trying to like, get the scoop a little bit. Like, what's the weed? Where's the weed from? Is it grown around here? Is it indoor? Is it outdoor? My usual like
Right.
sketchy questions that scare everyone because nobody asks those questions. And he took us down this really, it was nighttime, down this really dark alley. It was such a fun throwback to the sketchy days of weed where you would just meet a stranger in a park or something. Like it was so weird.
Yes.
And just
I
because of the
love the
lake
word sketchy
there.
there. It's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, yeah, who knows? Like every step, it feels like slightly riskier. Sure.
And plus down there, like alleyways are kind of sometimes major streets. So like even though it looks like a sketchy alleyway, it might actually be like a quite a common street people walk down, right? So it's like the
Yeah.
environment was different. We don't know where we're going. So we're just like following this guy, and I'm like trying to keep it light, trying to tell some jokes, like connect a little bit on the weed scene because I have no idea where this guy's taking us. And then he takes us to this super dark alleyway that is very obviously not a major throughway. And he looks at the three of us and he's like, well, there's four of us, including me. And he looks at us, he's like, only one of you can come. And so I was like, hold my bag. And I just like threw my bag at the team and I just like booked it down this alley. And the boys were like, bro, you should not go by yourself. I was like, if anyone's going to be part of this sketchy drug deal, it's gotta be me. So I literally was like, hold my bag, and just like ran down the alleyway with this dude, to this
You're like, don't worry,
dark.
I've got a press pass. I'm basically immune. Yeah.
I was like, there's no way you guys are going to get to do this sketchy drug deal. I like, fuck no, it's got to be me. So you should have seen the look on their faces. They were like, what the fuck, Amanda? No, sexism much, right? Like, obviously it'll be fun. My joke is always like, oh, I'm from Toronto. Like, as if that means something, like the mean streets of the six.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. It also lets people know that you're not American, which is a major point.
I actually think that was probably a perk too because I was the only Canadian with a whole crew of Americans, and I will say that that area, was not super American friendly overall. So maybe that was actually a good call. But yeah, we walked down this sketchy alley with this dude, who's all of a sudden went from being cool to being sketchy. And then he stops in this like dark ass fucking doorway. Everything's made of stone. It's just like this really weird environment. And I can hear music playing upstairs. So it sounded pretty lit. And I was like, oh, I actually kind of want to like go check out what's happening out there. But he looked at me and he was just like, wait here. So I gave him, 20 euros or 40 euros, whatever I gave him. And then he ran up the stairs and I like waited at the bottom, like, okay, I wonder if he's going to hand me like a crumpled up ball of newspaper with nothing in it or something, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was he came down with these nice little pre-weighed gram bags. And he was like, here
Okay,
you go.
nice.
And then he just booked it. That was it. And I just walked back down the alley to the homies. They were like, wow, we're really glad you're alive. That was really sketchy. Please never do that again. But so it goes, right? So I did get some weed from the black market. And it was super fucking sketchy. And it was pretty swaggy. I'm not gonna lie. It was swag. Absolute fucking swag.
Well, what's kind of interesting is right now Italy is paving the way for legal ganja, legal weed, and they're only letting the army grow it. So it's all Italian army grown weed that it will hit the shelves when the EU finally makes that like sort of a thing. And it will be very interesting because Spain's very close, and they have had and will have home cultivation. And Germany, who's trying to legalize right now, made a really strong push, had to walk things back a little bit, and one of the directions they're thinking about taking things is home cultivation. And if they do that, like, come on, we all know homegrown is the best shit. Like, the army's not going to do a better job. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, hey, we'll see. I wonder where your weed came from. I really do.
If I had to guess, they were probably just had like a swag farm just out of the city. Like it is pretty rural out there. It definitely looked outdoor to me. And if it was indoor, it was just grown under like fluorescent like house lights. Like there definitely wasn't any juice, wasn't juicy and delicious, and it was kind of
Yeah.
looked like it was lacking nutrients. Like I would say probably it was very likely like a ditch type weed. It wasn't terrible to smoke. I mean, I kind of have a place in my heart for cess and like brickweed. So it was there, but I didn't actually make my way through the whole bag. I was trying to ration it a little bit. Plus, I was looking for these shops because in this area there's like all these supposed shops, but once you start looking for them, they're actually just these storefronts that are these weird vending machines. So what's funny is the day that we were leaving Palermo, I had like a little bit of weed left in this bag, and I didn't want to bring it with me on the plane, obviously. So we went to
There you
this weed
go.
vending machine where I picked up some gum, and then I was like, "What do I do?" And Vince was like, "Why don't you leave it in the vending machine?" So I tucked it into the slot where, and once you bought something, you would pull it out, and it would be right there. Hilariously, not a couple hours later, one of the people that we were with went to the vending because I was like, "Hey, you guys, I found this vending machine. Like, it has pre rolls and everything." So Austin went to the vending machine, and he was like, "Did you leave weed in it?" So it ended up being that one of the homies found the weed that I left behind.
Hey, I mean, that's the best thing when somebody's going to be in a town you're in like 3 days later and you're like, look, there's a Jack in the Box, and in that back green bush, I have tucked you a small bag of my lefties. Like, good luck.
And I would have left it with them anyway. It was just like we left in like, I don't know, it just wasn't on my mind until we were like on the way to the airport. And I was like, oh fuck, I still have this like little .5 in my wallet. Like I got to get rid of this. So yeah, that was actually really funny. And Austin did get some pre rolls from the machine. He sent me some pictures. They actually look pretty good. And he said that he felt high. So I don't know. They say it's just CBD, but like, I don't really think it is. I just think it's like shoddy grown, so it's just really low dose, especially for us from the States and Canada. Like we're used to some pretty top shelf. Even the worst is still the best, you know? So yeah, that was Italy, and that was pretty fucking wild. So that was my only really sketchy drug deal while I was gone. Otherwise, we stayed in quite a few squats. And, the squat is obviously a radical space with anarchists and leftists and, alternative thinking people who are squatting these abandoned buildings. And, when you think of a squat, it kind of, people often think like really rundown, fucked up spaces, but a lot of them are extremely organized, very clean. Very nice guest rooms with beds, like nicer than a hostel, and friendlier.
Yeah.
And of course, all of these folks are smoking weed. So every country we went to, we tried to tap into the squat scene there. being anarchist leaning people. That's kind of those are our people. And so it was nice. So I got to try some local weed. Slovenia had amazing, like absolutely stunning flower, and it smoked so beautifully. And I would like to maybe do a deep dive into Slovenia in a later episode,
Sure.
because there's a rich history of growing cannabis in that country that I had no idea. So I ended up talking with a local who was really telling me that it was like a really booming industry for a really long time and that it was so widely available. And then kind of like the war on drugs happened in Slovenia and they just shut down all of the hemp, all of the actual smokable flower, and they became quite strict with it. But that there's still tons of farms that are growing. And so the black market there is ripe and full of amazing, amazing flower. So I definitely want to try to do a little bit of a deeper dive with some of the connections I made in that space, to see if we can't learn some secrets of the Slovenian black market cannabis scene because fuck, they're actually growing some fire over there. Um, I was impressed. It was good.
I love that. And of course, those stories have not gotten out. There was barely even like a little overlap here when cannabis became more legal, that the stories of everybody smuggling seeds in the 80s and 90s, and even like, uh, throwbacks earlier than that of people actually moving tons of weight into the United States. All of these stories started bubbling up, but it's not like the appellation to origin in France, where you can say, "Oh, that we're really proud of these grapes because they came from here, and there's a history of taking care of them," and blah blah blah. Like cannabis didn't really have that luxury, because even if the locals, or like it was widely known that this stuff is really fucking good and we've been like knocking it out of the park, you still got to keep that kind of hush hush, or it's all going to go away.
And this is the thing. So obviously, Slovenia wasn't really on my list. Like I didn't know we were going to end up there. So it was definitely like a kind of just a surprise few days. In Ljubljana is the main place that we were at Koper. We went to a few spots, but this mostly happened in Ljubljana. And yeah, I guess like what I learned is that they're actually trying to start to promote some of the local grown seeds and some of the local breeds because they're actually so robust, and so underground. So there's kind of this seed movement that's happening where, I know like in Amsterdam, they're bringing in a lot of American seeds to grow. Obviously, Afghanistan, Morocco, there's some keystone places around Europe that have really quality cannabis, like America, like California, Ontario, British Columbia. Of course, we have made a name for ourselves, but we are not the only ones making names for ourselves. It's just that the news doesn't always get. So Slovenia is definitely a fucking place to keep an eye on, because I think we will see a lot of crazy good strains come out of there. I wish I could have spent more time, but when we were there, this thing was happening called the Bura, which is basically the wind coming over the Adriatic Sea and over like the snow capped mountains. And the wind is so cold that it gets inside of you, like into my bones. So I'm a little stuffed
Yes.
up because it was seriously below freezing because of the wind. And so even though you looked at the weather, it maybe said like 6 degrees, 8 degrees Celsius. It was significantly colder. I've never felt wind like that in my life. And this Buddha is this like notorious third wind before the end, like at the end of winter. So now this week is probably super fucking nice there, nice and tropical, 16, 18, 20 degrees. But right now, when we were there, that was not the case. So we just kind of had to get out of there to get out of the cold. Which takes us to Croatia, but I want to put a pin in that because I want to just loop back around to Croatia at the end here.
Yeah.
Because I did, after Croatia, do one day in Oslo. Oslo is one of my absolute favorite fucking cities of all time. I fucking love Oslo so much.
Hell yeah.
Last time I was in Europe, I spent months there. I would leave and come back and leave and come back. I met a lot of amazing people, made some really good friends. I was so excited to spend 24-hour layover in Oslo. We went to a punk show at the local anarchist cafe. It's called Blitz. And it was cool. It was like, a bunch of different bands, a lot of young people in the scene, and then a bunch of old homies, like old because we're all old, but also just I haven't seen them in 7 years. Came out. And as soon as I got there, people love to smoke hash in Oslo, and it's
Mm,
Moroccan. It's all imported. It's Moroccan fucking hash. And the
man,
minute
sign me up.
the smell hit my nose, I was like, I'm
Mm.
fucking home again. It smells so fucking good, and it's so sticky, and it tastes so pure. And I was like, you guys can't tell me this is all coming from Morocco. Like, that's kind of a distance to go. And they were like, everything here comes direct from Morocco. And it is just the freaking best. And I was just getting all blazed with the homies because I mean, last time I was in Oslo, me and my friend Abigail spent solidly a month just hanging out in the guest room at the local squat, smoking hash, playing rummy. I'm not even joking. We would just take naps, we'd wake up, we'd smoke hash, we'd play rummy, we'd fall asleep again. We just did this for like a month. The hash is so good that we just barricaded ourselves
I
in.
love it. You're like, look, it was not quite an opium den, but we treated it like one.
And people kept
No,
coming
but
and going. Yeah.
tell me how you guys are smoking this old world hash, because I think probably most of our listeners are more familiar with like rosin and a dab rig, or at most like a 3-hole pipe. So tell me what you guys are getting into.
Oh no, it is Spliff Central over there. These are my people. It's always just breaking it up into some organic tobacco, a lot of Pueblo tobacco, and then just rolling these nice long spliffs, and then just sharing them around the room. And yeah, it's a spliff zone there. Everyone smokes tobacco. Plus, everyone's smoking inside. Like pretty much everywhere out there, you can just smoke inside, cigarettes and stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily. I smoked some hash in Croatia as well, and it was a little more frowned upon to smoke it inside. But Norway just gave no fucks. They were just ripping spliffs, right? I mean, it was an anarchist space also, so not like the local pool hall, so it was a little bit of a different crowd. But yeah, we were just ripping spliffs, and I tried to take some pictures, but you really can't see in the pictures how absolutely sticky and crazy and delicious it is, and just covering your fingers just by touching it for one little second. And it was just like so fresh, I guess is like the way to describe it. Just like crazy fresh and just pure. I don't know, it's just the purest smell. And I kept trying to pinpoint like, what is this smell, what does it smell like? And it's just so unique and so sweet. It's just like the purest.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this unique terpene that's mostly only found in hash like that. It is literally called hashishene, and it is a byproduct of myrcene and other terpenes that have been quote unquote degraded or changed by UV light and time. And if you have not smoked that old school, like blonde, brown, even like black hash that has that like crazy rich, complex scent, like you're missing out. And I haven't had it in so long, Amanda. My mouth is watering over here. Like there are a few companies here that will do like a Temple Ball or something like that. And I'm straight up like, what brand of tobacco did you say you were rolling up?
We were using Pueblo. It's like Spanish. I don't know.
Yes. So I do not smoke tobacco. It does not, it makes me nauseous, right? And I have just learned that at this point, like, okay, I cannot go heavy on it, but a little bit sprinkled in with some hash, and then I'll probably, round it out with a little flour. Sounds really nice right now.
Honestly,
Yes.
I'm telling you, just thinking about it again, my mouth is watering too. The minute I smelled it, I was like, oh my, like that smell was just like inside of me from the last time I was there. And I'd been really smoking
Yes.
light on the whole trip. Just not going too deep because, I just didn't want to have any issues being in different countries. But as soon as I got to Oslo and I smelled that smell, I was just like, let's get fucking blazed. Let's do it. Like it's so, so good. And I really, when they say it's imported from Morocco, I fucking believe it. In the world, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like that taste, that flavor, the look. It's just, you cannot find it the way it is there. So yeah, shout out to Oslo for just having the fucking hash. And it's really mixed in too, I will say. It's like they really blend the tobacco in with the sticky, plus they're rubbing their fingies with the tobacco to try to get the residue off, because as soon as you touch it, your fingers are just like glue, because it's so sticky, and just fresh. God, I think the closest comparable might be like, I don't know, live rosin. If you like, if it's pressed in front of you and you smoke it right away, like straight off the press is maybe like the most
Yeah, I
comparable.
mean, it's two ends of the same coin, right? It's the reason why we like really fresh botanicals like gin and also barrel aged whiskeys that have been like brought out and fucking blown the dust off of them. And we're going to tap into this and it's all developed and complex. So yeah, that's really rad. That's a rad experience. And I also feel like Oslo is like a really great market for Morocco to like get the harvest. Okay, this stuff is ready to go. Let's get it to a market that's going to pay a lot for it and respect it. There's so much like stepped on hash that doesn't have that like beautiful melt in your hands and also your mouth type thing going. So
Absolutely.
hey, what a fortunate little treat you got. Yes.
I just stopping into Oslo and seeing the homies at the show. Like that was just, I have a really poor sense of time. So for me, I felt like I was just there last year. Like on emotional level, I just feel like I was just there, but it actually had been more like 7-ish years. And we went to visit the squat that I had stayed at last time, Berakaden, and people that I knew were still living there. And it was just as welcoming. Like I stayed in their guest room on and off for like fucking 8 months, right? Like I just kept leaving and going back, leaving and going back. So as soon as people saw me, they were like, "Yo, Amanda," and nobody knew I was coming. So that was actually really cute that they were like, "Holy shit, Amanda, how's it going? Like, are you staying in the guest room?" And I'm like, "Nah, I'm just here for one night. I just came to say hi." So it's been a long time, but I don't know. It's nice to be remembered. My legacy of just living in the guest room, precedes me. So it was
Yeah,
cool. And it was
well, it sounds like you have a place to stay if you get back out there and need like
I
an extended sabbatical.
I would just love to go back every day. I really love it. And the brown cheese is like a really big thing there. It's this like caramelized goat type cheese. I don't actually think that's what it is, but that's what it tastes like. And I brought a little brick back with me because I was like, haven't had it in 7 years. It's like the best cheese. So yeah, I brought a brick back, but it wasn't hash. It was fucking cheese. But it did get swapped for
You fucked
drugs.
up, Amanda. No, I'm just kidding. No, you can get in trouble for cheese, but you can get a lot more trouble for hash. So I get it.
Oh, I was so scared they were going to take my cheese at the airport. They're like, "Well, do you have anything to claim?" I was like, "Nope. Nothing." Like, please don't look at my bag. Don't take my cheese. You are allowed to bring back cheese, just to our listeners. I did not break the law, but I didn't want them to know it was there because I was scared they would take it.
The
We only
cheese
have
sauce or whatever.
a few more minutes here, but I have got to get into one more location, which was Croatia. I went to 2 cities in Croatia. One was Zagreb, which is the kind of more major city, and a smaller town, which is also a city called Rijeka. And what's crazy is we took a bus from Slovenia, Ljubljana and I apologize for butchering these names. Really, I didn't spend enough time in any of these places to like get the tongue for the proper pronunciations.
When you go back.
Yeah, so we took the bus. It was a few-hour bus ride. We ended up in Rijeka, Croatia. And the minute you get off the bus, there's this stand. There's all these stands. They sell tobacco, newspapers, drinks, just little convenience stands, like a bodega. And it's mostly just a window and someone sitting behind, and they just hand you whatever you want. So we stopped to get some tobacco, and right in the window are jars of weed. Like just right
Oh,
there, sitting in the window, prices, everything. There was like edibles. And again, it's marketed as just regular weed, but I think it's actually CBD weed, and I'm saying this in quotations again, because it's just kind of weird. I don't know how to explain. Like, it's just fucking weird, and you're just there, and it's sitting right there, and you can just buy it, and people do, I guess, and it's just like right in the window, and it looks mediocre. I will say Slovenia number one for weed, Norway number one for hash. Croatia had it. It was kind of janky. So I didn't buy any because it didn't look very good, but it was right there. Pre rolls, vape pens, chocolate bars, like whatever you want, sitting right there in the window. Not
wow.
really with much labeling, I will say. So it's like, I think that's why people aren't really sure, like, what is it? Because I think they're marketing it as CBD, but it maybe has this like low THC percentage. So people we knew and our team of 10 were going around and picking up weed. And there was one night outside the bar where people were trying to sell us like a gram for $20. That looked pretty nice. But again, I was like, I'm kind of on a budget here. I did smoke some hash in Croatia. It was pretty tasty. just normal tasty hash, nothing too crazy. Definitely got you high. I mean, it's hash. So the black market is alive and well there as well. But I think in a minute here, I'm going to insert an interview that I did with one of the girls that I was with. Her name's Sara. And I was only in Rijeka for 2 or 3 days before I went on to Zagreb. And a few hours after we arrived in the next city over, we got this text in our group chat that was like, hey, so me and Sara, we're outside a coffee shop. The cops showed up. They're taking us in. Just so you guys know, we're being sent to this cop shop. They're probably going to take my phone. The basic story is that they were sitting outside. The lady thought they looked weird. She called the police. The police came. They were like, hey, do you have any weed on you? Guns, weapons, weed, drugs, whatever. They were like, okay, we have a little bit of weed because it is decriminalized there. And then Sara spent an entire day in Croatian jail. So I'm going to throw in the interview with Sara here. Okay, so just like go ahead and introduce yourself and tell me what the fuck happened.
Well, my name is Sara, and I am living in Florida, but I came on a trip out to Europe to visit some friends and travel around and see the sights, and ended up in Croatia, in Rijeka, Croatia, and I was waiting for a bus. I had, gotten some cannabis because I am a cannabis consumer. I found some in town. It was not of good quality. I was sitting and waiting for a bus, eating some snacks with a friend, and so 3 police officers came up and, asked us if we had any drugs or weapons, and I said no, and they were like, well, if you have any weed, you could turn it over to us now and give us a ticket, and then if you say you don't have anything, we're gonna probably get a warrant and take you up to the station, search you both anyways. So I had some weed on me and my friend did not, and I didn't want him to get in trouble, so I turned mine over thinking it would just be a ticket, no big deal. And they told me it would be an hour in the police station to fill out, my citation or whatever, and it ended up being like a whole day in detainment. The police officers were not nice. They were making fun of me in Croatian, and I couldn't really understand them, and I got a 700 euro fine, which I probably won't pay. But yeah, it was pretty scary. I guess it's supposed to be decriminalized in a lot of different countries in Europe, Croatia being one of them. You're supposed to be able to carry up to 5 grams. But I've heard from, local friends that they don't treat it like that at all, even though it's the law.
It's so crazy to me because in Rijeka, right where you get off the bus is a little convenience, a little stand, and right in the window, they're selling weed.
Yeah, it's like CBD, and they inform me, like, at first I was like, oh, I think it's CBD because it was just really bad weed, like not good at all, and not what I'm used to in the States at least, and they were like, oh, well, if you have CBD, you would have to have a receipt on you, and even if you did have the receipt, we would take you up to the station and test it for THC, so.
Really?
Yeah, it seems like they take it, pretty serious. I mean, they dumped out everything, all of my contents in my bag on the sidewalk at the bus stop. So I was just sitting there, and I asked why, and they said that profiling is pretty bad there, and I don't think I look weird, but I guess they think I look weird. So.
I don't think you look weird either. Maybe Coco's pants.
Yeah, it could have been Coco's pants, the patchy pants. Yeah, that could have been it.
So when they first approached you, like, what was the vibe? Like, could you tell they were, like, looking for something no matter what?
Yeah, they were definitely scoping us out, and not sure what to make of us at first. But then, you talk to us for a couple minutes and you realize that we're kind of harmless. And I think that it was just like, something to meet their quota or extort some money out of me. I had to pay €40 to get out. They were just going to hold me forever or something. I don't know. They didn't really tell me what was going on. It was really confusing.
That's so fucked. You ended up spending like an entire day at the cop shop.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't as intense as American jail, where they have you like in a literal cage with a metal toilet, but it was like just scary because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know when they would release me. I couldn't understand anything they were saying, and they were like just kind of really mean, and I was just really confused.
Fair enough. And like, how much weed did you have on you? Realistically, like a couple grams?
It was only 1.5 grams, so.
What?
Yeah, which is crazy to me. I mean, in the States, I've done 30 days for a bowl of weed, That was a few years ago now, but.
Which state was that?
That was in Florida, actually. In Ocala. That was intense. I don't really do anything wrong, so it's always crazy to go to jail for cannabis.
I just assumed while we were there, because so many shops are selling weed, like right in the window, not even blocked off. It's just like jars sitting right there in the open, that it would just be like, I don't know, they would take it, maybe write you a ticket for, like €40 or something, and then kind of send you on your way. I mean, even at the end, after spending a whole day in the cop shop and then giving you this insane ticket, which, if anyone's ever been to Croatia, the cost of living there is quite low. So, like, that is a significant ticket to receive.
Yeah, and even the standards of the States, I'm like, I'm not going to pay that. There's no way I can afford that. So I don't know if I'm allowed in Croatia right now, but here I am.
Right, but you're in a different... See, Zagreb gave me different vibes overall. Like, energetically, it was a different type of... Well, it's a city compared to Rijeka, which is, like, more of a town, a little more old-fashioned looking.
I like Zagreb a lot. I think Rijeka is just, like, a smaller, more conservative Catholic town than Zagreb is, where, I think they just profile people, and anybody who's, not heavily conservative Catholic looking is probably going to get shaken down.
And, like, how did it feel being in jail, basically, in Croatia? That must have been literally terrifying.
It was pretty scary. I just tried to stay calm, but after like that hour that they told me it would take went by, and then like 3 hours went by, and like 6 hours went by. I was like, all right, when are you guys gonna let me out? Like, you got my passport, you have my phone. Like, it was pretty scary just not knowing what was going on and when they would let me back out. I had 2 friends sitting outside the jail all day waiting for me.
Yeah, we were getting the text updates, and the first one was scary. Like, we were in a different city already, and it was just like Coco messaging the group and being like, hey, we're headed to the jail right now. Shit just went down because of a fucking gram of weed. And it's just shocking because, again, when you think of a place that claims to be decriminalized, it sounds like you were quite criminalized, in fact, for having this tiny amount of weed on you.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing. It's definitely a culture shock compared to what I'm used to. Just being shaken down like that for no reason, waiting for a bus, was pretty crazy to me.
And literally waiting for the bus, like right there where the lady's selling weed out the window. Do you think if you had a receipt, it would have made a difference? Or you think no matter what?
I think they would have taken us to the station no matter what.
Wow. So how do you feel about smoking weed in Croatia right now?
I still am. I mean, that's stopping me. But, I'm definitely more low-key, a lot of spliffs, way tucked back, and if people come around, I put it out. But it's like, I'm pretty, like, paranoid now. I haven't been this paranoid since I was, like, a teenager, so it's pretty scary.
Coming from a place that's fully legal, I've even got visiting the States, I've been so paranoid going back and going to places like Europe where it's just not cool. the way it is here left like this high level of paranoia for me on the whole trip. But what's crazy is everywhere we went, people are smoking weed.
Yeah, exactly. And it was actually like really hard to find everywhere I've been. I feel like it was abnormally hard to find weed here. Like it was like copping actual drugs or something, you know?
That's so funny because I feel like even the squat when we got to Zagreb, the first thing they did was roll a joint.
Yeah, I've had an easy time here actually. I've found the best like weed I've had in Europe here in Zagreb. Through the squat, yeah.
Oh, nice. That's yeah, it was pretty tasty. Even we were in Slovenia. Slovenia is also quite conservative, and same thing. As soon as we landed, like people rolled up a joint and handed it to us. Like people are just smoking weed, like literally they do everywhere. So it's really crazy that you had to experience this entire ordeal, and I'm just like so grateful that it ended with a ticket and not. I don't know what even they could have done, really.
Deportation. I was worried about getting like deported. I mean, they didn't mention anything like that. I think they were just like, it was more of a money thing. They're like, oh, she's American and assumed I have money, but joke's on them, I don't.
Yeah.
Just weed, no money.
Oh my God. I appreciate you sharing your story so much because I think like these are really things people need to know could happen. Even when you think, oh, I'm in a place where everyone's smoking weed, they're selling weed at the convenience store, it's decriminalized, like these types of things still happen. Is there anything else you want to share about your experience?
Yeah, that's pretty much the story. I mean, I can't stress enough, ACAB International. They suck everywhere, you know?
How many of them approached you when you were sitting outside the coffee shop?
3.
That's a lot.
Which is intimidating. Yeah, we're like sitting down, you know, just eating some like apple chips and talking amongst ourselves, waiting for the bus to that island to go camping. When they searched through my backpack, I had like a pound of potatoes. They were like, why?
Oh my God. And were they like fully uniformed? Did they have guns? Like what was their... Yeah.
I was just like, you know, American police, except that the cop cars were different. Like they didn't handcuff me. They let me like sit in a room with my stuff. So that was different than what I'm used to.
Wow.
It wasn't like a cold cage, but the cops were pretty like awful. They brought me back for questioning several times. And then they never even told me how I could pay the fine online from home anyway, so...
That's crazy. Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, ACAB means all cops are bastards. I'm so glad it just ended with a bullshit fine and that it didn't scare you away from weed, because I don't know, that's...
Oh, no. Nothing could scare me. Nothing could scare me away. Need that.
It's also such bullshit because you were on such a mission to find it, and then you finally did, and it was shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And it ended with them taking it anyway. Out of curiosity, what did it cost you to buy the black market shitty weed?
It was like 20 for 2 grams, but I mean, I did have to take like an hour-long bus ride with a greasy, like creepy guy. So there's that.
Oh, really? Oh, so it was like a sketchy adventure from the start.
Yeah. But I was like, man, I just haven't had it in weeks, you know, which is, I'm an everyday pretty heavy smoker, so
so funny.
I was willing to take the chance. Yeah.
And where did the guy take you?
It was like across town. It ended up being like, just like some sketchy guy, and then I was like stuck with that guy for like an hour, and he was kind of gross and creepy. I don't know.
Oh my God.
But I did find some. The guy was like, "Get some good skunk. Get the best skunk in all of town." And it was awful. It was some of the worst weed I've smoked in a long time. Tasted bad, old, dry. It wasn't. But the stuff in Zagreb is much better.
I agree. The stuff in Zagreb was really flavorful and didn't taste old and looked like weed and smelled like weed and.
Yeah, I pulled it out the other day. I was like, oh my God, it's real weed. I haven't seen this since the States. So
Fuck.
It exists out here. It does.
Well, you've earned it.
Yeah, hell yeah, I did.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your story with our listeners.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
I hope you have a great rest of your time in Zagreb.
Thank you. Yeah. Hope you have a great rest of your time in good old Canada.
And plus, you're headed to Barcelona, which is also decriminalized. So
Allegedly.
I feel like I'm going to start saying that like with quotations, you know, because that's.
I'll let you know if something happens.
I literally talked to her this morning. We recorded the interview just earlier today. She's perfectly fine. It was just a really fucked up experience. And it really just ended with her having to pay like a crazy, insane fine that she's not going to pay. So, you know, we're just not going to go back to that city anytime soon. But I guess, you know, of all the stories to tell, it's that traveling as a cannabis user, you think a place is decriminalized means a certain thing. But it really doesn't. You know, at the end of the day, if the cops want to fuck with you, they will. Even if it's decriminalized, you know, you would like to think, oh, I'm a tourist, they're going to be nice to me. No. And it can really happen to anyone. So decriminalized doesn't always mean that they're not going to treat you like a criminal when you're traveling.
Yeah, absolutely. Like all of these like stop and frisk antics are still like alive and well all over the place and can be used to discriminate against someone pretty easily. So, you know, just be wary of that when you're traveling. And you know, what everyone used to do, they used to put the Canadian flag on the back of their backpacks, so it would at least be like, hey, I'm not an American.
Yeah, there's not a lot of American love over there, and maybe we'll get into that in a future episode because I think that there is an idea of America that has transcended borders, but I don't actually think like the way the government behaves really represents the people that live there. So it was kind of unfortunate to get into these like heavily political discussions when obviously we don't want all this bullshit that's going on. But yeah, I think there's definitely a stigma against Americans, unfortunately. And of course, we're spending time in these squats, which are very political spaces, and so the discussions can be
Yeah,
um,
those are the
very
conversations to have for
interesting.
sure.
Yeah, I will say the one thing that did surprise me is the number of people who didn't know that weed is legal in Canada.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. And
Like,
I mean, I
really?
don't know if a lot of people know, but Canada is exporting a ton of weed too to other countries. So I don't know. You know, I guess they need to spread the word. Maybe you and I should do some marketing for the country.
That's what I'm saying because, like, I work with the CCTA, the Canadian Cannabis Tourism Alliance, and they were like, "How's your trip?" And I was like, "I don't know how much tourism we're expecting from Europe, but they don't fucking know weed is legal here. So there's a gap. We have a problem because people smoking weed in these countries have no clue that we've legalized at all. How I like, I'm just like, I thought that would have made international news in a more of a splash. It's been 4 years. But maybe it's just so uncanny that it's not even,
Yeah.
like the
Well,
idea of it.
yeah, the slow rollout too did nobody any favors when everything is 100 news stories instead of one big one.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was interesting. And then, yeah, the trip ended, by the way, with me in New York. I landed in JFK, and by the way, so we reported on Buffalo. I didn't make my way as far as New York. New York is fucking hilarious. There's literally people driving minivans with weed leaves painted on the side, with glowing lights that are selling like 2-for-1 pre-rolls for $5. And like we were just walking around Brooklyn just for a couple of hours. Like we had like a 12-hour layover, so we were like, oh, let's just like me and Vince were like, let's just go to the bar. Let's just go to Brooklyn for a
Yeah,
couple
go hang
hours.
out.
And then go back to the airport instead of just like sleeping on the floor for a few hours. And so we were just wandering around Brooklyn. I'm trying to remember what that name, Bushwick. I guess we were in a pretty trendy hipster area, meeting up with some friends. And yeah, there's literally just people driving little minivans, and just sitting, eating snacks on the side of the road, and just with these little. I tried to take pictures, but like at that point, I was like feeling like tired and just sketchy. So I took like some really bad blurry photos, but The black market there is popping off. The friend we met up with, Serge, he said he had been to one of the 3 legal dispensaries. He was not impressed by the weed and the prices were way too high. So while we were walking around, he was just like going, it was almost like how it is here, where there's like a dispensary every third storefront. It was just like every third food truck was a weed truck, and they're just everywhere.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they have a lot of gaps to fill in that market. And so I think that there's going to be weird solutions like that for a long time. I have never seen an excitement around the industry that is bigger than New York. And that includes everything along the West Coast here, all these opening markets. So much money is being thrown into New York and the surrounding states just because they're a state that surrounds New York. It's really wild right now. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. Amanda, I know you got to go. I know you got to run. So glad to have that perspective. Super awesome that everyone is still alive and traveling and on to smoke the next herb.
Yes. And all the homies are still out there.
Where can we find you this week? Where can we find you this week? Let's try to get this episode out there before you go. Yeah.
Right. It's going to happen. So I'm back. I got my computer. I'm ready to roll. I'm like, never want to miss this many weeks of our podcast ever again. But yeah, this week is a big week because literally tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., I'm flying to Vancouver, British Columbia, because I'm on a team of 10 people who are rolling the Guinness Book of World Record, world's biggest joint. It's fucking real. This is a real thing. It's 61 pounds. There's 10 of us on the rolling team, 5 on the grinding team. I'll be hanging out with my homies, Blunts and Beans. If you guys don't know Blunts and Beans, check them out. They're 2 badass babes in the canna industry. And they're just awesome. So I'm so stoked to be meeting up with them. But we're going to be out there. And it's going to be absolutely fucking bonkers. So I leave tomorrow. I'm just jet setting. And yeah, that's what's happening. So if you're not following me on Instagram, definitely fucking do it, because I'm going to be posting absolutely nonstop the whole entire experience, because this is a real Guinness Book of World Records attempt. Guinness is actually going to fucking be there. And I can't wait to see my name in the Guinness Book of World Records. And also the smoking spot is one of the official sponsors. So our logo is on the filter, which is like 3 feet long.
It's amazing. Amanda's going to be rolling up like 27,000 grams. A couple of days ago, she was tucking a half a gram up into a vending machine. I love it. 420, I'm going to be kicking around at the Potland. They're doing a big thing with like ranch pizza and tamale boy. I'm going to go to the Boys Ruthie's over their restaurant later in the afternoon, evening. They're going to be doing like 420 carrot crunch wraps and crazy stoner desserts, all kinds of fun shit. So yeah, hey, catch us around, come smoke a joint with us, find us on Instagram, and like, review, subscribe, all those fun things.
Exactly. And also I have a special treat today because Sara did that amazing interview. And Sara, thank you so much for telling us about your experience in Croatia. But before she went, I asked her to give us a smoking spot of her favorite place in Croatia to smoke. So we have the good and the bad. And she's such a fucking badass for doing this with the time difference and everything. So I'm going to pop Sara's favorite smoking spot up here.
It'd be that hotel, that abandoned hotel. That place was sick. It was owned by the founder of Penthouse. So there's a little bit. Saddam Hussein had stayed there back in the 70s. It went bankrupt after 2 years. And it stood abandoned for about 30 years now and is covered in graffiti. And there's so much to explore. A beautiful view of the Adriatic Sea, clear blue waters. Yeah, free beachside property,
I love that. Awesome.
Cool. Well, we will be back next week, and we will catch you then.
Bye.
Said no matter what kind of pain and anguish life may bring you, oh, smoke it up, hold it down, and don't ever stop. Well, you can always find your smoking spot. Yeah, you can always find your smoking spot.